I dreamed of living alone but fearless.
Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C. That Knows a Lot, Dr. Waluigi. Chances are, if you're an anime fan, you've at least heard of the company Studio Ghibli and the current head of the company, Hayao Miyazaki. He's been called the Steven Spielberg of anime, and for good reason, as he's helped direct, produce, and just all around create some of the best Japanese animated movies that have graced the silver screen. Even though most of their movies have been snubbed at the Oscars, which is complete and utter bullshit, and I will not stand for it any longer! Which is why, in honor of its 30th anniversary, this episode, I wanted to share with you travelers about my personal favorite movie from the company, as I related to the characters in the story both as a kid and as an adult. It's the story of a young lady who is trying to discover who she is and what she wants to be, as well as being the introduction of another popular Ghibli character that many fans will recognize. This is my review of the 1995 Studio Ghibli film, Whisper of the Heart.
I dreamed of living alone but fearless.
The movie was based off of the manga Mimi Osuma Seiba by Aoi Hiragi, and was the first and last movie to be directed by animator Yoshifumi Kondo, who sadly died of an aortic dissection 3 years after the movie's release. The movie was released in Japan on July 15, 1995, and was a box office success, making 3.15 million yen. As far as being released to the West, we wouldn't see it out here until 2006, due to trying to settle the rights issues with the song Take Me Home Country Roads by John Denver, as that is the song that plays throughout the movie. But eventually, we did get it released on DVD by Disney, and it even gaining a Blu-ray re-release a few years ago, along with the other Ghibli movies. When I was a young kid, my brothers and I discovered these movies while looking through the anime section at Blockbuster, and we each discovered our own favorite movies. While I will fully admit that I never loved this movie as a kid, and I probably liked Castle in the Sky or Kiki's Delivery Service more for the fun adventures that were appealing to me at that age, but as I look back on this movie, it did give me a lot of inspiration for characters and story elements that I would use in my own writing. And I can safely say that I connected a lot with the main character and her life when I was heading into high school, and even more so later on in my life. Which is something that, while still liking a lot of them, the other Ghibli movies haven't really been able to do.
I dreamed of living alone but fearless.
The movie follows Shizuku Tsukishima, voiced by Yoko Hona in the Japanese dub, and Brittany Snow in the English dub, a young girl who is getting ready for her graduation from middle to high school, and is working on a song for their graduation, which is a parody of Take Me Home Country Roads. However, over the course of several months, she starts to grow and learn about herself, leading to her falling in love with her rival, a boy named Seiji Yamasawa, voiced by Issei Takahashi and David Gallagher, who inspires Shizuku to pursue a career as a writer, and starts to write a story about a statue named the Baron, voiced by Shigeru Tsukuyuji and Cary Elwes, after she discovers him in Seiji's grandfather's antique shop.
I dreamed of living alone but fearless.
Once again, I'm going to be discussing the English dub of this movie, as that is the version I've seen. With that said, the voice cast of this movie is pretty good. I think all of the actors do a great job, and the writing of the characters is the best I've seen in a coming-of-age story. As I said before, I really related a lot to Shizuku, as she reminded me of, well, myself when I was around her age. Someone who wasn't confident in the hobbies that I did, but was happy to share them with my friends who encouraged me to keep pursuing them. Though I never had any big relationships like the one with Shizuku and Seiji. I feel like the other characters, specifically her family, were also really well done, as I can at least relate to the relationship she had with her sister, as being the youngest myself, I'd argue with my siblings in a similar way. The last character I personally liked was the antique store owner and Seiji's grandfather, Shiro Nishi, voiced by Harold Gold, who shows Shizuku his prized possession, the Baron Cat statue. Which, yes, for those of you who don't know, is the same character that got the spin-off movie The Cat Returns, and is voiced by Cary Elwes in both movies. Shiro is another character that I liked because he was someone I wished I had in my life who encouraged me to pursue my dreams of being an actor or an artist. But sadly, that never happened for me, and I had to push myself to keep doing the hobbies I wanted to. Regardless, he's still a character type that I like to use in some of my own writing. I think this cast is just one of the many positives of this movie that make me come back to it the most.
I dreamed of living alone but fearless.
I don't think I have to say that the animation in this movie is amazing. One thing I love about Ghibli movies is that no matter what movie you watch, the animation is always the best part of the movie. Even somewhere as simple as a city looks amazing with all of the sunrise and set moments that show the wide open beauty of the city. But the best location in this movie is the antique shop, as it looks like a log cabin right out of a fairy tale. Which makes sense, as Shizuku is an imaginative girl who uses this place and the character of the Baron to make her own story about him. Which is the main highlight of the movie, with all of the creative moments where we get to see the world that Shizuku makes when writing her story. Which is where we learn about this movie's biggest negative.
I dreamed of living alone but fearless.
To be perfectly honest, this movie doesn't have any negatives from a story or a visual perspective. However, I feel like I have to mention that when me and my siblings started watching the Studio Ghibli movies, this one was marketed like it was supposed to be like The Cat Returns, where we thought the movie was going to be another great adventure involving Shizuku going to the world that the Baron had come from. Now keep in mind that we didn't have the internet at our fingertips, nor did we have the kind of information that you can look up today about the story or premise of these movies. So the only thing me and my siblings knew about this movie were from the trailers that were released when this movie came out in the West, which is why I do consider this a negative because of the false advertising that came with the movie, since this one was falsely advertised and wasn't anything like its spin-off The Cat Returns. But nowadays, I know that the modern generation is able to look everything up because of how much technology and information is available to us. But that doesn't change the fact how this movie was marketed to the West and how many of us were tricked into thinking the movie was going to be like another one that we saw when we were younger.
I dreamed of living alone but fearless.
Despite the fact that this isn't one of the more fantastical movies that have been made by Studio Ghibli, it's the one that I feel holds the most special place in my heart for being the movie that made me relate to the main character. It is also one of the first movies that inspired me to become a writer, and while I haven't published any of my works yet, I hope that one day I'm able to get published and that people will enjoy my work like you guys do here on YouTube. Other than my personal connection, this movie is just a good coming-of-age story that I think a lot of kids and adults who want to pursue a career in writing, and even has a little nice romance thrown in for good measure. Overall, I give Whisper of the Heart a 9 out of 10. It's a sweet story that I look back on as a part of what made me the creative person I am today. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.
I dreamed of living alone but fearless.